All right, good afternoon, everyone. And I call the meeting of the Community Development Human Services Committee meeting to order for Tuesday, October the 29th. I am Jason Winston, chair of the committee. I am joined by my colleagues to my far right, Councilmember Andrea Boone, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, and to my left, we have Councilmember Mary Norwood. This does constitute a quorum, so at this time, I move to adopt the agenda. We have a motion, and it's been properly seconded by Councilmember Norwood. Mr. Evans, if you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Next, I move to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Westmoreland. If you could please open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed. 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. This takes us to the public comment section of our agenda. Just a reminder, each speaker will have 3 minutes. I will gently remind you when there's 30 seconds left. Our first speaker is J. Wesley Day.
Good afternoon. This is going to be a part 2 from yesterday. Why should I continue to vote for the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party has not provided me with any support during the darkest time of my life? Hashtag no one cares, hashtag in Fulton County, Georgia. I have repeatedly sought support from Georgia's Democratic leaders, hoping for accountability and justice. Reverend Warnock, a leader and my pastor and my frat brother whom I once trusted, dismissed my pleas, refused to pray with me, and publicly disparaged me by calling me a wannabe Jussie Smollett. Then had me removed from the church's food line. See, I had went homeless. I lost my job at Delta Airlines. Furthermore, Atlanta's mayor, Andre Dickens, retaliated against me, against my advocacy by garnishing over $1,000 from my mother's bank account. See, I took out a $4,000 loan from Invest Atlanta when I owned my restaurant in 2011. Over 10 years later, I heard from nobody about that $4,000. But when I started speaking up about my injustice, all of a sudden Invest Atlanta came and garnished my mother's bank account, who I'm the caregiver of and whom has dementia. The Democratic leadership here in Georgia, from the entire Atlanta City Council to the majority of the Fulton County Commission, has offered no assistance or accountability for the injustices I have endured. This letter is an open letter to the Vice President, Kamala Harris. It says, Madam Vice President, can you understand the struggle of Black men that we face under prosecutorial misconduct? I challenge you all to ask Keith Gamage in regards to the Freedom of Information Act. The number of people he charged with a misdemeanor, as he did with me, disorderly conduct. How many people he escalated that disorderly conduct to a felony? How many people he charged with disorderly conduct and dismissed? These records would shed light on patterns of misconduct within Fulton County's judicial system. After 6 years of fighting alone, I feel compelled to question whether this Democratic leadership has failed people like me. Suppose I choose not to vote for you, Kamala Harris. In that case, it's not a vote against you personally, but a statement to the Democratic Party for their unwillingness to support justice in my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Next, we have Henry Jordan, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Giving out to the Spirit of God, everyone that's here. Take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Matthew 6, chapter 1st verse. Jesus warned us not to give alms before men just to gain human recognition to ourselves. James Griff gave money to people for them to agree with him, asking for death for himself and others. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. Proverbs 3, chapter 5th verse. Moral stability prior to the temptations is the prerequisite for successful resistance. It's a blessing to resist Satan's temptation. But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Hebrews 12, chapter 8 verse. Whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. God's principle of disciplining his own people is completely congruous with human practice. James have rejected Christ's chastisement. We should receive Jesus' chastisement to avoid death. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Call upon his name. Make known his deeds among the people. Psalms 105, first verse. It could also be classified as a hymn of praise, since it includes the characteristic threefold content: a call to praise, a call for praise, and a conclusion. I attempt to tell you what Jesus has done through me to help you, but you reject what I am saying. You reject it because of who's in leadership, promoting injustice, or who in authority, so-called worldly authority. Christ hates injustice. We want to love justice because Christ hates injustice. Justice will set you free. Injustice will put you in bondage to Satan. And we want to have power to obey Jesus and disobey Satan. Because Christ got a protection plan for us that the devil cannot deliver us.
Thank you. Next, we have Countess Thompson. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is my first opportunity and first time talking publicly, but I'm a proud owner of a restaurant that I opened in 2008. That I opened up in 2008 in 4th Ward. It's a raw food vegetarian restaurant. As of last week, I went downtown, planning to reopen the doors of the restaurant, but on the doors was a disconnection notice for water. My water bill is $11,000. I was shut down in 2020 due to COVID. I need help. I need help with finding out what's the problem with this water bill. I need help with paying some of the water bill. I'll pay what I owe, but what $11,000 to today's date, unconscionable. It is a travesty, and that's what I said. I haven't had any assistance financially since the day that I opened it up, but I'm asking today that the city of Atlanta, all city Atlantans, any organization to please help me, because we don't have good restaurants downtown. And believe me, the restaurant with vegetarian food, smoothies and juices, and the wellness that I provide there, it's necessary. If anybody's been downtown Edgewood, then you know what it looks like. My place does not look like that. However, I have, since 2020, experienced a broken window, which is about 11 by 11 window pane size. All of the units there have experienced that. Copper piping has been stolen off of the building. Painting has been placed all over, tagged all over the buildings. And I alone have to bear the burden of this. And I shouldn't, because I didn't do it. I have, in order to help myself pay and not lose my place of business, I have a senior citizen living in there in order that he is able to live and pay his way in this world. Now there's no water. I need help. I really need the help. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know I'll let Councilmember Boone speak to you.
So, ma'am, your water is presently cut off?
Yes, ma'am, as of the
Okay.
23rd of,
Okay, I'm going to walk you downstairs to see what we can do to help you today, okay?
yes, ma'am.
And we've been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. And I'll also add that Invest Atlanta is here doing a presentation. Dr. Clementis that you're sitting next to from Invest Atlanta is here. They may also be able to help some assistance with your business as well. Our next speaker in looks like Bernal Bridges. Bronal Bridges, Sickle Cell Foundation. All right. Next, we'll go to Femi Adesanya. Femi Adesanya. All right. Well, looks like that concludes our public comment section of our agenda today. We do have two presentations today. Our first presentation is the Atlanta Continuum of Care Quarterly Update by Ms. Catherine Vassell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Catherine Vassell. I'm the CEO at Partners for Home. As a reminder, as I think you all are familiar, Partners for Home has the pleasure of serving as the lead agency for the Atlanta Homeless Continuum of Care. We are a HUD construct, so the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that all communities that gets HUD funding through Continuum of Care funds has a lead agency. They believe very strongly in that overall coordination and administration of both the providers and the work that's happening on the ground, as well as the important work of alignment and coordination and leverage of resources, both public and private resources. That is why a nonprofit was created many years ago in order to leverage the private sector to be able to do this work and to scale and invest in new housing interventions and solutions to help end homelessness across our community. So to that end, since 2018, we have actually rehoused almost 13,000 people experiencing literal homelessness. And we've done that through a number of mechanisms that we've shared with you all along the way over those years. We do that through the hands and feet of many, many partner providers across our community, some of which are listed here. And I just want to call out that this is not inclusive of all of the providers across our community that are doing this very, very important work. Our bylaws actually prevent us from doing direct service. So all of the work that's happening on the ground through street outreach, through shelter, transitional housing, and then to permanent housing is done through the important staffing and support of our incredible providers who are on the ground. Last year alone, and through stimulus funds that have enabled our system to really systematize the way in which we try to rehouse people, we housed 2,400 households who were experiencing homelessness. There's a picture on the slide that shows you a before and after of a recent encampment that we have closed and been working in, and I'm going to share a little bit more about that in just a moment. Oh, it's getting ahead of me. It's got a mind of its own. How do I stop it from moving? Okay. Oh, the one before that? No, I don't have a timer on it. So I can continue talking on that second slide that you should have in front of you, which is LIFT. LIFT 2.0, as you all are familiar with, which has been the rehousing effort made possible through stimulus funds. We have spent a total of $28.8 million to date on this work. Our goal was to rehouse 1,500 households, prioritizing unsheltered people across our community, as well as those who are experiencing chronic homelessness across our community by the end of 2024. We've hit and exceeded that goal, housing 1,700 households to date, most recently prioritizing individuals across 34 bridge locations with a total of 238 people, among those 1,700 being rehoused, who were prioritized at bridge locations. The next slide is an update on the Cooper Street encampment in particular that we've been working on in Councilmember Dozier's district. This encampment, as I think everybody is aware, has become a site that had grown exponentially since our engagement began over a year ago. Most recently, there were 50 individuals identified in this encampment who were on our by name list. We have formally closed this encampment through a very collaborative effort across multiple providers, as well as our partnerships here at the city, working in close partnership with the mayor's office, with Atlanta Police Department, with the Department of Public Works, with partners from the Atlanta public school system and from Fulton County, who were the respective owners of the parcels of land in this encampment. And now working with DEEM, who is actually fencing the area. We have permanently rehoused 43 of the 50 people in this encampment. The remaining 7 are working on documents and working towards moving towards permanent housing. In your slides, on slides 4 and 5, you'll see the tremendous work that was done across all of these departments, with significant cleanup across this community, about 2-acre parcels of land, and then the after that is happening now, and you see some pics of the fencing that has gone up. And I think again, just the tremendous collaboration that happened here is something we are very proud of. And most importantly, from our vantage point, is the rehousing now permanently of the majority of the people that were unsheltered in this location. All right. Oh, okay. All right. This is great. Thank you. I'm actually going to pivot to providing some system level updates from a performance standpoint of how our system is working, and a sort of bird's eye view of how our system works on any given month. Kaylin Arrington, who's with me as our Director of Continuous Quality Improvement at our organization. Kaylin is responsible for overseeing these dashboards. You can go on our website today, and you can pull up these dashboards. They're actually interactive. You can toggle between each of the respective numbers and outcomes on the screen. We can't show it interactively here because we're not online, but I'd encourage you to check it out and encourage folks that are interested in this issue and interested in understanding how our system is performing and moving on any given day to go to our website and check out the dashboards. We look every single month at the number of people that are coming into our system and the number of people that are exiting our system, also where those people are accessing services and where they are going, and we're tracking that very closely. So I'm going to actually have Kaylin come up and walk you through the next 2 slides.
So as Catherine mentioned, we do track who is coming into our system and who is exiting our system. So inflow are those who are entering our system. In the month of September, we had 357 households, so these represent households rather than individuals, enter our system, and 386 outflowed, so they exited our system. Most of those 386 that exited our system were exited positively, meaning that they've been housed in a permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, they've self-resolved. However, 77 of those did outflow back to homelessness, and you can actually see that on the dashboard, which is interactive. Going to the left side, we have 4,612 households that are active in our system. The breakdown of that shows, and sorry, it's a little hard to see if you're in the audience, but the breakdown shows that roughly half of those are in our system in existing housing programs, and the other half are still looking for housing either in street outreach, emergency shelter, or transitional housing. And so about half of those households, a little more than half, are on our coordinated entry housing queue. So they're looking for housing solutions. And then on the bottom left-hand side, you can see that the month of September, 77 households were housed through our housing programs. And that brings our year-to-date so far to 858. And this is a conservative count because it relies on accurate move-in dates being put into our system, and case managers that are working directly with the clients don't always do that untimely. So it's likely an underestimate. And if you click under housed on the website, if you click that see more, you can get more of a snapshot into that housing. You can see how many households were housed month over month for the year. You can also track our progress year over year. So down the bottom, you can see that since 2017, we have housed roughly 14,000 households, and you can see that that trend line is increasing. So we tend to house more households year over year. On the bottom right there, it shows those that are exiting our housing programs, where they're exiting to. And that graph shows that the vast majority, over 90%, are exiting to permanent or temporary solutions, but they're not exiting to unsheltered homelessness. Only a small percentage are exiting to unsheltered. So people are able to retain housing. Also on our website, you can break it down by race, ethnicity, veteran status, age group, and chronic status. So we can track our equity and progress we're making that way as well. I'll pass it back over to Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin. So again, just wanted to give y'all a bit of a snapshot into how we track outcomes month over month, and also as a reminder that although we talk a lot about the point in time count, that is just one data element that we are looking at in this holistic picture of how our system is moving on any given day as it relates to homelessness big picture in the city of Atlanta. I want to pivot to now from updating you on kind of what we've been doing to now where we are headed. And this is our Atlanta Rising campaign that is looking to really execute the goals of our newly adopted strategic plan over the last year. In partnership with the city and many other partners around the community, we have launched a $200 million campaign to execute the goal of the Rapid Housing Initiative, which is delivering 500 new units by the end of next year, along with several other strategies I'm going to walk you through in just a minute. I want to undergird the rest of the conversation with the backdrop of what we are up against and the headwinds, if you will, in terms of why, in spite of the rehousing numbers that we continue to talk about and applaud our community around, we continue to see rising visibility and rising numbers of unsheltered homelessness across our community, which admittedly is very visible and is very problematic for all of us and concerning to all of us across this city. One is we have experienced unprecedented increase in rents at the tail end of 22 and the first half of 23. Those that are deeply the most impacted by that, folks at the lowest end of the income spectrum, will not recover from that unless we continue to invest in deeply, deeply affordable housing, and we need to be able to keep pace with that investment. So the shortage and the vacancy rate of deeply affordable housing is really hurting us in the homeless space. And the challenge that we have is our inability to go upstream and turn the faucet off and prevent more people from coming into our system as a result of that shortage. The other thing we'll talk about is where we are from a funding standpoint and the need to continue to increase funding so that we can increase pace and scale of housing placements. As it relates to comparatively where we sit compared to other cities around the country, from a number standpoint, we actually continue to trail in terms of the number of people experiencing homelessness when you look at other cities around the country. Some of our sister cities have seen dramatic spikes in the number of people experiencing homelessness, but the reality is we all continue to ebb and flow as we are all fighting and struggling with the lack of deeply, deeply affordable housing across our community. I think this slide on the screen here does a really good job of graphically showing you what we are up against in our community as it relates to why we see the numbers of people experiencing homelessness rise. Right now, we are experiencing what's on the left side of your screen, right? A clogged up funnel, and without the right level of investment, we won't be able to turn this on its head, which is on the right side of the screen, and the ability to create the ability to unclog this funnel and really loosen up that mouth so that we can house at the right pace and scale and make sure that our exits into permanent housing are doing what they did in the month of September, which is exceeding the number of people coming into our system. The reality is right now, for every one household that our system rehouses, another 2.5 come behind them and become homeless. So we are a homeless crisis response system, and our job is to rehouse people coming into our system as quickly as possible. And we are only positioned to do that with the level of investment that's coming into our community to do so. So if you look at the slide here, this gives you a vantage point of the amount of funding we get from HUD annually compared to other cities around the country. So this is the only dedicated funding stream that we have for homelessness currently. Right now, it's at $13 million, and it only goes up incrementally year over year based on what Congress allots to HUD in their budget for COC funding. And that usually results in about a 3% increase that we can apply for annually. We are currently in the annual application, and our job as the lead agency is to package that application. Much of these funds actually go directly to these providers. They have to apply locally and competitively, and then we package that all up and submit it up to HUD, and then it competes against every other COC around the country. From my understanding, we were late to apply when this money first was released in 1989. And so the pool of available funds was more limited than what we could have been otherwise eligible to apply for back in the early 90s. For then a period of years, we did not have a very strategic oversight of how what was then the tri-jurisdictional continuum of care went after new potential bonus dollars. And so this is where we are left with 13 million. And as you can see, many other cities across the country get dramatically more dollars that come into their community. And most of which, in addition to this, have dedicated funding for homelessness at a local or state level that also supports their homeless crisis response system. So that said, we are doing a tremendous amount of work with one arm tied behind our back. And we need to do more from an investment standpoint so that we can continue to scale the investments in housing solutions at the local level. I want to also give you another bit of context for how we operate in this community in comparison to other jurisdictions that surround us. So what you see on that slide, and you can pull this data down from the HUD website, we have to submit, in addition to our point-in-time data annually, our housing inventory count. And every COC around the country, including Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, the balance of the state, they have to submit that as well. So you can pull it up. It's really easy on their website. It tells you exactly how many emergency shelter beds a COC has. It tells you how many transitional housing beds, and it tells you how many permanent housing solutions they have. As you can see, Atlanta has, exponentially more than our surrounding jurisdictions. And I think all the more reason why, when somebody becomes homeless in the metro area, they show up at Atlanta's front door seeking help and support and services. And so we are supporting the lion's share of this metropolitan Atlanta area's problems with, again, limited resources and with jurisdictions that surround us that have very limited resources to support people becoming homeless in their community. So with all that said, this $200 million campaign proposes to do several key things. One, we want to have a targeted focus on downtown and unsheltered homelessness in the downtown area. We are proposing to continue to invest in rapid rehousing, which has been the intervention we've been able to scale and test through stimulus funds. And we're proposing to raise about $47 million to house another 1,800 households, but do it in a shorter time frame, so we can see if we can rehouse at the right pace and scale so that our outflow can exceed our inflow. and we can reduce that visibility on the street. We're proposing some refinements of our coordinated entry system, acknowledging that Gateway can't be the only place that people show up to, and we need more places for people to be able to go so that we're not inundating just one agency with this particular issue. We want to also work on and focus on prevention in a tailored way so that we can try to reduce that inflow coming into our system. We want to increase housing production. That's going to be made possible through this recent bond that we issued, the $50 million investment, to do 500 new units of housing by the end of 25, so in rapid order. And we also have another 135 or so of our pipeline coming online in the next 12 months. We also want to dedicate street outreach from a geographic standpoint, starting with downtown in particular. I just want to walk you through a couple of these. Starting with this graphic that I think helps you get a more graphic picture of what we are trying to do. That annual inflow suggests that we need to rehouse about 4,400 people annually. Remember in 23 we did 2,400, so we need to almost double this number for us to really be able to keep pace with the number of people coming into our system. We want to shore up the front end of our system with new prevention interventions. We want to do more in diversion so we can rapidly exit people that don't need long-term supports. We want to get folks that are chronically homeless with long-term disabling conditions who need permanent subsidy into those supportive housing units. And we want to rapidly rehouse everybody else. And that's time-limited supports based on the needs of that household. Just a quick update on the rapid housing production. So we closed 2 weeks ago on 729 Bonaventure. That's 24 units of turnkey apartments in the Ponce Highland neighborhood with support from the NPU, which is incredibly exciting. And we're hoping to be able to move people in the next few months there with some light renovations that need to be done. We have completed the Melody project, as I think everybody's aware of by now, with 40 formerly unsheltered folks residing there permanently. We've broken ground on the Waterworks site, which is West Midtown at Northside and 17th Street. And we are hoping to start construction in 25 on 405 Cooper Street. We're hoping to get to this 500 mark through a combination of new construction as well as acquisition. That's why we have these broken up in these two separate categories. We know we have to move quickly, so it's not all going to be new build. And we are working very closely with Josh and his office to identify new projects to be able to hit that 500 goal by the end of next year. As a part of that, as you all know, we still have this supportive housing pipeline that is still underway. We've got some tremendous projects that have been delivered in 24. We've got 1055 Arden, the Mallory, the Steed, Stanton Park, as well as Macaulay Station, which is doing the ribbon cutting tomorrow. All across our city, brand new construction in all of these developments that have supportive housing units embedded within. So we're very proud of the fact that we're able to deliver such a high quality and beautiful product for people coming directly out of homelessness. Just as an update on what's coming in 25, so in addition to rapid housing that we're doing, we have the Abington at Ormwood. We'll have 8 supportive housing units here. This is right in Ormwood Park, adjacent to East Atlanta. This is under construction now. We'll deliver next year. 277 Moreland, which is the former Atlanta Motel, is due to deliver in the early part of 25 as well. This will be 56 units of supportive housing coming online. Holly Street will also come online in 25. We have 9 units of supportive housing on the west side in partnership with Quest. And then 111 Moreland, another 42 units in Reynoldstown of supportive housing that is also under construction and due to deliver at the end of 25. And in closing, as I said, we see this campaign as an opportunity for really our moonshot moment to test strategies we've put in place and to scale them, and to really be able to accelerate the movement of people who are on our streets into housing so that we can see visible results among the unsheltered in the streets of Atlanta. I will close there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So we'll take questions from colleagues here. Start off with Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you once again, Catherine. I know it was great seeing you last night, and I know we didn't get too much time to talk. So if I had more time to ask questions last night, then I probably will ask fewer questions this afternoon. So
Oh, darn.
apologies in advance. The first, just with regards to 405 Cooper, number one, appreciate the work that you and the administration have been doing to clear and secure those sites. I know the fences went up last week. Of the 50 individuals that were identified at that site, in your presentation, you said 44 of them have already been relocated. The remaining 6, any insights of what's going on with those individuals? They're just refusing services? Have they relocated to a different encampment or location in the city? Just any insight on what's going on with those individuals?
Yeah, 43 have been rehoused. The remaining 7, they are working on documents and working on their rehousing plan. So they are continuing to work with their case manager. I'm not sure how many of them, but there are a handful of the 7 that did go to shelter. Not all of them did choose to go to shelter, which is fine. They can continue to work on their rehousing plan.
Then with the ones that are still kind of being evaluated and assessed, now that the site has been secured, do you know where they are at physically?
I don't personally, but their case managers should know where they are, should be working with them to work towards rehousing.
Okay, and then the property across from not across from 405, but the other site across from Rosa Birney Park, is the encampment there included in the 405 numbers, or is that a separate sort of tracking that y'all are doing?
I believe it is a separate number. I will double check for you and send that in a follow-up email if that's okay.
That'd be great. And then I was really curious with the spending that you had per city. Well, firstly, let me just say thank you for those charts and that information. That is definitely my love language when I want to see where there are challenges and what y'all are doing to try to address those challenges, and to see the different widgets and the pipeline and what that all looks like. It definitely helps me talk to my constituents in terms of how complicated this issue is. Oftentimes, especially when we do an encampment clearance and then 3-4 months later the encampment's back and folks are like, I thought we cleared this out. And there's definitely a churn that happens that y'all are working through that we recognize, but the folks who live in these communities or who have businesses in these communities don't always see what that ecosystem is that has to be worked piece by piece, and that's going to be a helpful tool for me to talk to my constituents about all the work that goes into keeping folks housed. And so on one hand, I was curious with the spending that we are seeing per city, do y'all have a breakdown also by household or individual or family? So for instance, Atlanta is getting $13 million. We know what Atlanta's numbers are, 13 million divided into, was it 1,400, or I'm sorry, 2,300 housed individuals last year. Sorry if I'm getting these numbers all over the place, but I'm curious with Chicago, with Portland, what that ratio looks like and how we stack against those other cities. Like, are they doing more with the money that they have? Are they doing less with the money that they have? How are we, just from an efficiency standpoint, how are we spending compared to our...
From like a cost per household standpoint?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't have that right off the top of my head. What I forgot to mention as it relates to that particular chart of HUD funding and peer cities, that money, in large part, with the exception of the new bonus money we can go after annually, pays for existing housing programs. And so we are only able to rehouse people with those funds through attrition of those housing programs. So I want to point that out. But to your question, in large part, and this would be variable by markets, right? The West Coast is probably going to be the most different than compared to Atlanta. On average, and it varies based on like the cost for the unit, because our price, for example, for supportive housing is about $24,000 per household. About $11,000 to $12,000 of that is for the rents, security deposits, that kind of thing. And then the rest, the other $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 is for the supportive services. I would say that that's probably on par with many cities, but it varies based on their rent costs, essentially. We're not doing things dramatically different from each other. So maybe put it this way, supportive housing and rapid rehousing, which is what most of these dollars across the board pays for, is an evidence-based practice that we all implement in the same way. The cost variable probably is based on the cost of rents by city. Does that make sense?
It does. And I imagine too, every city is different in terms of its own municipal contribution to this effort versus what is going in from the county versus what is going in from the state, or if there's like a regional entity. It's the same conversation we have around transit. We know how MARTA is funded here in Atlanta, but the Metro in DC gets federal funding, gets state funding, and so it's hard to do an apples to apples comparison. I don't know if in y'all's analysis, y'all ran into that same sort of challenge with how some of these other localities are getting.
Well, no, that's a great point. So we could probably do back of envelope, like cost per household based on HUD money for you, but then that's a whole additional factor that, I don't have for every single city. We look at it, Miami has a restaurant tax. That the restaurant tax for restaurants exceeding, I think it's $400,000 in revenue within the city of Miami proper, that tax goes to support homelessness for families, for example. Chicago and LA have an Airbnb tax. That tax supports homelessness in Chicago and LA. San Francisco just did a wealth tax, and they've been able to bump revenues dramatically based just on that wealth tax alone. So there are so many of those local variables, and then a lot of those municipalities have states that have dedicated revenue streams funding their state housing trust funds, and they get a carve out from there. We do not currently get a carve out from our state housing trust fund. We're advocating hard to get one and to increase the funding there. So I don't think I'd be able to pull that.
No worries, but that does get it to my next point, which, looking at the funding gap that we're looking at to get as many people housed on an annual basis as we think we need to, what sort of lessons learned or best practices from other localities across the country can we bring here to Atlanta? I know that's going to take some work, not only with our own city department of law to figure out where there's some preemption and some things like that, but even conversations with our state legislators to see if we could make some tweaks to state legislation to allow for a wider array of tools in the toolbox to get y'all to the funding goal that y'all have to really get at this issue the way we need to. And so I'm happy to have a future conversation on that, but just something that I'm interested in. Just y'all are the subject matter experts, and y'all know what's working in other parts of the country, and we got to fill that funding gap as best as possible. But we'll love to know what y'all are thinking as far as what additional legislation could help y'all could support the work that y'all are doing from a funding standpoint. If there's an additional tax, additional revenue stream that we haven't been thinking about or haven't been leaning on, and if there's some challenges with the state that we have to work through to make that happen, I'm all here for it. To make it
That's absolutely music to my ears. Would love to follow up with you on that. There's no question we need a dedicated revenue stream, either at the local level or the state level, for homelessness in Atlanta. We're working on a few different pathways for that, but would be happy to have a follow-up conversation with you about what we're sort of thinking right now.
Absolutely. And then just my last thing is it's just a comment. I know when the Melody first was not even built, but even when it was pitched, we had a lot of businesses that were up in arms. We don't want this next to us and this, that, and the other. We're concerned about this, that, and the other. We had the bi-weekly stakeholder meetings with those business owners. I spoke with one of those up in arms business owners a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that he was completely wrong, and that the folks that live at the Melody are some of his best customers because of the proximity. And so I think it really speaks to, I know communities across, we were dealing with in Mechanicsville, is concerned about, the neighborhood, there goes the neighborhood, when in reality, these are neighbors, these are citizens, the same way you and I are. And I think the more we can tell that story and just really have an open dialogue and keep that line of communication open, I think the more people realize we're all in it together. And so I just thought it was a great coda to some of the things that were the frustrations that were shared when that project was announced initially. So I just wanted to get that back to you as well.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Chair, I yield.
All right, thank you. And obviously, you all know we've been joined by Councilmember Dozier. I forgot to say that earlier. Next, we have questions from Councilmember Norwood.
My question is, in your slides, it said for every household that you house, you get 2.4 households that become homeless. What are those people that have lived in Atlanta a long time? Are those people that have moved to Atlanta because of hopeful for help? Is that addiction issue? What are those stats on who are the 2.4? So every time we do one, we get almost 3. So, and I understand trying to stem the tide, and I understand the destination. I get that. So I'm trying to figure out what comprises that 2.4.
Yeah, this is a great question that we get a lot. When we look at zip code data of last permanent address of people becoming homeless, in large part, the majority, and I want to say it's around the 76% mark, but I can get you the exact number in a follow-up email, report a zip code within City of Atlanta proper. The next largest group is from the metro Atlanta area, and then the much smaller percentages, really I think it's less than 10 to 5%, and Kaylin's probably pulling it up right now, are from out of state. So I think there is what we kind of call an urban myth and anecdotal experiences, which I've even had as a former case manager, of folks showing up from out of state, or what we hear from people of these folks just got bussed in, right? Somebody sent them on a bus from another state, is the small minority of people who are experiencing homelessness and inflowing into our system. Who they are people from Atlanta that are very poor and no longer have a place to live that they can afford. They may have burned a bridge where they might have been doubling up or tripling up or living in a housing vulnerable situation, and they've exhausted that situation. Some of the other causal factors of people coming into our system from our data are, in addition to the lack of affordability, access to medical and behavioral health care has been deemed as a causal reason why people become homeless, and also a barrier for people exiting homelessness. Significant exposure to trauma and violence has been identified as a causal factor for people coming into our system as well. But at the end of the day, it's somebody's wage or lack thereof not being high enough for them to be able to continue to afford where they had been living. And these are Atlantans for the most part.
Okay. And explain the Destination Home and Cisco program, if you will.
Yeah, so this is something that is brand new. We were actually contacted proactively by Cisco and Destination Home, who is our COC counterpart in Santa Clara, which is in the heart of Silicon Valley. They received a $50 million investment from Cisco over the last 5 years, I think through really, in large part, an acknowledgement that the tech industry has been a force multiplier in unsheltered homelessness on the West Coast. And Cisco took ownership of that and made a tremendous investment in homelessness. As a part of that investment, they dedicated some of those funds to a prevention pilot, targeting in a much smaller portion of the pie of people who might need prevention, with a set of risk factors that they identified, namely individuals who are between 0 and 30% of area median income, had a history of homelessness in the past, and or had mental health or behavioral health diagnosis. They targeted those folks for prevention dollars with that investment from Cisco, and in partnership with the University of Notre Dame's Leo Institute, they've shown that it was statistically significant in reducing the number of people flowing into their system. And they are launching a 10-city pilot around the country, with the first 3 cities being prioritized as Atlanta, San Mateo, and Austin, Texas. Cisco has opened up a new office here in Atlanta, and we understand their CEO has a keen interest in trying to prioritize Atlanta as one of the next cities. The goal of this work is to make a federal case to use COC dollars for prevention, which is not an eligible expense right now for these dollars. And they are looking to enter into an MOU with us right now to start planning for this with a hopeful launch date of June or July, which we think will align with this campaign. So we can begin to test prevention strategies here in Atlanta on this in partnership with them in a way we've never done before.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Next, we have Councilmember Boone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Just a question regarding the Melody. So those residents will be there permanently?
They sign a 12-month lease with the option to renew if they want to stay.
Okay. I, for some reason, I thought that they would be there for a short period of time, like maybe 36 months, and then move into permanent housing somewhere else. I thought that that's not how that works.
It is designed to be permanent housing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from colleagues? Well, thank you again. I think, most of the questions that I have been answered. I do want to make one quick point to Councilmember Norwood's question around that 2.4 number that she was kind of talking about. I'm wondering if there's a way, that we can all work kind of collaboratively, kind of see if there are triggers or there are red flags that we can see, for someone that may end up experiencing homelessness. For instance, a thing that came to my mind were, water disconnects through the city of Atlanta. Like, is that a red flag that someone is on the potential of becoming homeless? And could we work with, Watershed or Department of Public Works and start working with you to identify individuals who could end up in a situation like this? I don't know if you're already doing that, but just seems like it may be something that we could discuss. I mean, obviously, we have different programs at Watershed that help individuals if they're experiencing issues around financial instability, being able to pay their bills, but also that still seems like a red flag that we might be able to kind of intervene in some of those moments. So just putting that out there, and maybe we can have a deeper conversation about it later.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we would welcome that. As a part of this prevention initiative, we will have the ability to tailor our own predictive risk factors and to come up with them on our own. So if we think that a water disconnect notice could be an indicator, of future homelessness, then we could include that.
Sure.
But that is something that, we will include in the planning to be able to identify what are the localized predictive risk factors that we want to target for Atlanta.
Awesome. Do have a question from Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation today. One of the things that disturbed me that is in the presentation that Councilwoman Norwood talked about is that the return of the 2.5 replacing or appearing the need for the estimated services and additional, regular full-time housing. Is there a projection of how much housing that we need to have to prevent that dynamic from happening? You mentioned that you are putting, you're basically through attrition, putting people in place as really the spaces become available in these programs. How much housing does the city actually need to have to accommodate people coming here needing that particular roof over their head, really?
Yeah, that's a great question. We frame it in terms of dollar amount. So one of the things that Kaylin works on with me on a regular basis is using this thing that HUD puts out called Stella M, and it is a tool that they created to help communities do what you're asking, which is do system modeling. What does it take for us to end or at least get to equilibrium to be able to ensure that our outflow is exceeding our inflow, and that, what does that number look like? So, and I could send you the breakdown by housing numbers, but one, remember, we don't refer every single person who's homeless to the same type of intervention. So what our system modeling suggests right now is that we need $40 million annually to be able to rehouse in these different types of interventions. And for us, that includes diversion, which is just a shallow, quick subsidy. It's like $3,000 per household for people who may have just become homeless for the first time ever. Maybe they have a job currently and they really just need security deposit, first month's rent to get back on their feet. So a certain amount of that 40 million goes to support 1,000 people in diversion annually. A certain amount would go for rapid rehousing, again, time-limited subsidy, people that need some longer-term support. A certain amount goes to supportive housing. Those are our 3 key interventions, and that's what that $40 million actually pays for. In terms of unit mix, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can send you what that equates to from a breakdown standpoint. It also does factor in the $13 million that we get from HUD annually, and it actually digs deep. It looks at how many units do we turn over from that $13 million monthly? On average, we house about 20 people a month from that money, from that attrition. And so it accounts for that. So really our gap is 27 million because we've already got the 13 million. And then the 27 million is, X number of people that would get rapidly rehoused, X number of people that would need supportive housing, and X number of people that would need diversion.
Well, I know you probably can't answer this, and now I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman who Terry Lee replaced over at the Housing Authority.
Oh, Eugene,
Eugene.
his last name.
One time he came and made a presentation here, and I asked him a question, why isn't the Housing Authority building housing for the unhoused? He said that HUD had a prohibition against that. Is that still the case? Can anyone here answer that? Because I know that was just a couple of years ago when he was.
I'm not familiar with the prohibition against that.
They could build multifamily housing, they could do the mixed income development, but he said that they could not build temporary, or short-term housing to address homelessness.
That part is true. So their money does not support development or operation of shelter or transitional housing. Now, what they can do and what they do with us is they can use some of their tools like their project-based vouchers and their choice vouchers and give us a preference for some of them. So all of our pipeline units that I showed, those all get project-based vouchers from the Housing Authority. The rapid housing units, we are hopeful, will also have some sort of subsidy or voucher from the Housing Authority. Atlanta Housing also gives us a pool of tenant-based choice vouchers that we allocate to people who are currently homeless. It is a finite pool, and we always want and need more, but they, of course, have limited resources as well. So they support on the permanent housing side, but he was correct, and that has not changed in that the public housing authorities their money can't pay for temporary.
Well, that is really still unfortunate because somewhere between currently the city of Atlanta being in the best financial shape it's ever been in its history, with the largest reserve that we have and different streams of income that come in, $27 million doesn't seem like a bridge that's that far away. And if there could be some construction or building or at least an anticipation of a revenue stream to help to address this, then I think that's something that we really ought to be focused on as a city.
I could not agree more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for a very detailed quarterly update. No, it was the data in there was great, so really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have a quarterly update from Invest Atlanta. We welcome Dr. Clementis, who will say she's proud CEO and president of Invest Atlanta.
Thank you. But as you know, Council, you're only as good as your amazing team around you. So I thought today I would bring the subject matter experts in each of these. So today you'll be hearing from us on 4 different programs. Small Business Loan, which is headed by Cynthia Friedman. She's talk about her slides. She'll also go over the Wells Fargo Open for Business. Then we have the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative. You'll get your annual update on that. And I'm proud to say that Jen Bonet is our new executive director, and we're excited to have her. She comes from Savannah Economic Development, but prior to that, she was founder of Startup Chicks and worked at ATDC, the Advanced Technology Development Center at Georgia Tech, which is Georgia Tech's longest standing incubator almost in the nation, if not probably the longest. And then after that, we'll end with Jennifer Fine, who will give us an update on our tax allocation districts. So Ms. Cynthia Freeman, you want to kick us off, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Eloisa said, I'm Cynthia Freeman. I lead the Small Business Development Team, and our responsibility mainly is to provide funding to small businesses in the city of Atlanta. So far this year, we set goals each year. So far this year, we have closed and funded 52 loans to small businesses within the city of Atlanta. And as you can see on the slide on the bar on the right side of the slide, that the loans we provide fluctuate from year to year. Back in I think that's 2021, I can't see that far, but we did 62 loans that year, and that was during COVID, because we developed a lot of programs. We received some money from the CARES Act, and we were able to fund a lot of programs. After COVID, we went down. We started working our way back up, and as you can see, for the last 2 years, 2023 and 2024, we're on track to kind of solidify how we're going to do each year. Hopefully, our goal each year is to do at least 50 loans, but we want to do more, and so we're in the process of now developing programs on how we can get more money out the door faster to more businesses in the city of Atlanta. On this slide, as you can see, this is our Open for Business programs. Back in 2022, Wells Fargo granted Invest Atlanta some money to do some programs, and we developed 4 programs. On the left, Atlanta Recovery Loan Program, that is the actual loan program. We provide loans to businesses in commercial spaces. However, this is the only loan program that we will also fund home-based businesses. We kept hearing from the businesses that there was a need, and we decided since we had this money, we would do that. And as you can see, this year so far, we've closed and funded 68 loans. Now, the Atlanta Startup Growth Loan Program, that is our program we developed for tech startups. We kept hearing from the tech environment that we needed to do more for tech companies, and we used some of that money to fund tech companies. And as you can see, we closed and funded 12 loans this year. We were granted $2 million, and I'm happy to say all of the money is out the door. So we're waiting for the money to revolve back in so that we can provide funding to more tech companies. And then the Commercial Down Payment Assistance Program, we're really proud of this program because this program was developed to help businesses in the city of Atlanta avoid displacement. We heard a lot of our businesses talked about leases were going up, landlords were selling businesses from under them. So we developed the Commercial Down Payment Assistance Program to help avoid displacement. And the good thing about this program is we were granted $3.5 million. We have most of the money out the door now. But the good thing about this program, this is a 10-month note that is amortized over 25 years, but in that 10th year, if the company is in good standings with Invest Atlanta, they can ask us to convert the balance to a grant. So this is that's the most appealing part of this program. And then we have the Commercial Property Improvement Grant. This is money there's a grant to to businesses in the commercial spaces, but it's for renovations. And so far this year, we've granted 78 applicants for renovations. That's a total of 163 loans and grants that we've granted to our businesses in the city of Atlanta. 80% were Black-owned and and female-owned businesses. And I just want to highlight here, on the left-hand side, this is Wash and Bubbles. This particular owner received $50 in a grant and $55 in a loan to open a laundromat that had been closed for many, many years on Joseph E. Boone. And with the funding from Invest Atlanta, she was able to open her doors, and now she's providing a service in that area that had long been not available to the residents. And on the right-hand side, this is Kosher Guacamole. They do business as Bonus Dias Cafe. This particular company is a Salvadorian company that sells really good Salvadorian food, and they were at the Met, they were downtown, they were at many places, and so in order to avoid displacement in the future, we were able to help them buy this property on Sylvan Road. So again, we have a few more dollars to get out the door, but the majority of the Wells Fargo money is out the door, and we're proud to say that we, as that money starts revolving back in, we're going to continue to make loans to small businesses in the city of Atlanta. Any questions?
We'll do questions at the end.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Jen Bonet. I am the director over the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, and I also serve as VP of Tech and Entrepreneurship at Invest Atlanta. As Dr. Clemente mentioned, I recently moved back to take this position, so I'm excited to be back in the city that I love, serving our entrepreneurs in our community. Prior to my time in Savannah, I ran ATDC, the Advanced Technology Development Center, the longest running technology incubator affiliated with a major university in the world. My heart goes to serving women entrepreneurs, so I'm really excited to be a part of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, I came into town 6 weeks ago and was able to step right in and take on Cohort 6. Cohort 6 is 15 women that have been in the program for almost 2 years instead of 15 months due to leadership changes and COVID and all the craziness that's happened. But we graduated them last week, so you'll see some pictures from the graduation ceremony. Lots of power pink in the room. So the 15 companies all graduated. They are still all on their entrepreneurial journey. They're not all on the same idea they started with. That's something that happens during the 15-month period, is they often pivot and find a better business opportunity, but they're all still active. Probably the number I'm most proud of is that they've doubled their revenue from the overall cohort from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. They are flat on job growth in the city of Atlanta. I think you're going to see that as a trend when we get to the next slide, that the job market is a little bit different than it was for startups, and so we're seeing kind of flat on jobs. But this is a 15-month program with mentoring and education and coaching, and it's a fabulous program. Overall, again, this was Cohort 6. So overall, we've graduated 90 women from the program since about 2011, I believe, is when the very first program started. Out of that, we have some pretty phenomenal statistics. 74% of all those businesses still exist today. So this is going back almost 10 years, 9 years really, as far as when the cohorts were running. The normal number for that would be about 45%. So, you know, about 45% of all businesses live past 5 years. We've created about 1,380 jobs through the program. About $42 million in annualized revenue has been generated by our women-owned businesses that graduated the program, and we've taken about $8 million in capital. The capital is always the challenging part for the ladies, right? As you may well know, less than 2% of venture and angel capital to this day, I started tracking this number in 2008, still goes to women entrepreneurs, and less than 1% goes to minority female entrepreneurs. So the fact that these classes have been able to raise $8 million is amazing. I do want to point out an additional quantifiable impact of our relationship, Invest Atlanta's relationship to this, is that this has led to our women getting their businesses to the point of time where they qualify for other programs. So we've had 31 of the 90 graduates go on, and that's a unique number, so some of them have taken more programs than not, but 31 of the companies have gotten some sort of other small business assistance, be it a commercial down payment assistance, be it the startup growth loan, or technical assistance to the tune of about $4.8 million in total investments into those companies through our programs. And there's a case study to the right of the slides there. That's Olivia Rios. She is a current graduate, just graduated, Cold Mountain Consulting. She has taken technical assistance through our small business at ATL and Business, and then got a commercial down payment assistance loan through Ms. Cynthia's team, and was able to purchase the building that you see there, which is the Giant, a space on the Giant factory, former factory, Lofts, which she is not only running her 10-person business out of that has over $1 million in year revenue, but she's turning into a co-working space for specifically Latina entrepreneurs. So she's going to give back to the community and hopefully help us launch a whole lot of Latina entrepreneurs that will be working out of that space in the future. So that's pretty exciting. As I look towards the future and some of the things that I'm thinking about, having been here about 7 weeks, it's really, I'm out there talking to our alumni, talking to our current people, talking to community partners, and really looking at the future and trying to think about is how can I have a bigger impact with the money that we get to grow this program so we serve more entrepreneurs and have a larger economic impact in the city through that. And I think part of the key to that is focusing on even more education and making it more easily accessible to people that maybe are not part of the cohort. So let's educate all the women entrepreneurs in the city, not just the 15. And then what can we do to activate the alumni? So we have these amazing 90 women entrepreneurs that are successful in growing businesses and achieving revenue. And can I activate them to come back and be mentors? Can I activate them to grow bigger businesses? And how do we continue that cycle? The average entrepreneur, I've done 8 startups myself, so the average entrepreneur, once they get the bug, starts over and over again, and we want these women to keep growing, starting and growing businesses here in the city of Atlanta that employ our neighbors and our community.
I just also wanted to give CDHS members an update on the Small Business Association grant program that the council voted on for us to initiate. So this was the first time we offered support to small business associations in each of your districts. As a result of that, the spectrum of services were a little wide, and we worked with each association. Some provided marketing, some provided technical assistance, some did outreach, some did professional development efforts. Really, it was a broad spectrum, but at the end of the day, it was to meet businesses where they were and what made sense for each of the associations. What is exciting is, as a result of this effort, the associations have, in other words, helped over 500 businesses in the city of Atlanta with these services, with about 18% minority owned of those that were reporting. So we are excited about what this association network has provided us and what foundation it is giving Invest Atlanta, because now we're going to use these relationships and contacts specifically with things that are approaching us quite quickly, like World Cup. And so how can we better leverage and reach all our businesses where they are through the associations with these type of efforts. So I just want to say thank you for all that support. It really has made a difference. And Jennifer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So I have a few slides just to go over some TAD data and some specific programmatic information like I do every quarter. So first slide, of course, shows all of the TADs. This one, I just want to pay particular attention to Atlantic Station, since we've been focusing and tracking estimated completion date. So just to let you know, we will have all debt and other outstanding obligations met by the end of this year. So that means by first quarter next year, we'll be in a position to start the closing process, which is, I think, several months in advance of what we were tracking. So we're excited about that and happy to report that to you. This is a new slide in the presentation just to kind of reiterate key areas of focus for the TADs. You know, all TADs were created at different times to do different things, but there are very much consistent themes throughout them all: economic development, job creation and retention, community redevelopment, affordable housing, infrastructure, open space, and sustainability being those key areas. So it's just important to kind of bring that full circle to talk about how TAD really is impacting people in those ways. So just, again, a reiteration of all the different areas that TAD can help finance, and that TAD is one of the only tools that we have to really help drive small business and job creation and retention. We talk a lot about the affordable housing, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well, that TAD can do, but I think it's important to really talk about the versatility of TAD in other areas that we're able to leverage this funding to help drive small business growth in the city of Atlanta. So this information is through the end of September of this year. So you can see on this slide, we've approved 17 projects in 5 TADs. We've committed a little over $24 million, which in turn has leveraged over $412 million in private capital into those projects and into the city of Atlanta. And then of those projects, it represents creation of about almost 1,300 housing units. Really important to note here, of that number, 1,151 of those will be affordable, and the affordability will range between 30% and 80% of area median income. Also want to point out that on the TAD side, not only do we require affordability for projects that receive TAD financing, but we also require a certain term. A lot of programmatic areas have a 10-year or a 15-year term. On TAD, we have a minimum of 15 years, but we, as you can see, we typically try to get at least 30. And so on average, these projects represent about 25 years of affordability. So that's important to note. And some of the TAD money is layered with other financing tools, tax-exempt bond financing, so it'll end up being a much longer term. There we go. And this is just a map that you have at your disposal to see geographically where these 17 projects are, again, throughout 5 TADs in the city of Atlanta. More project details if you want to see how much square footage of each project and who's doing it. This gives you all of that information. So I have 3 slides to talk about TAD projects. Again, important to note that, you know, they're not just numbers. They exist in neighborhoods and in communities and house people and house the companies where people work. So the top slide is the first phase of an overall neighborhood transformation in Northwest Atlanta, created with the former Bowen Homes redevelopment. This phase, again, phase 1, will include 151 multifamily units. A third will be rented at 30% of AMI, another third at 60% of AMI, and the remaining balance will be at market, so a true mixed income multifamily housing neighborhood. Estimated completion on that phase is 2026. The bottom imagery, super excited about this. This project actually just closed, and when we say closed, that means all the contracts have been executed, the financing has been executed, so it's going to start construction. This is a project in partnership with City of Refuge. This is their transformation center in historic West End Heights Bankhead neighborhood. Will be new construction of a relatively large vacant lot. When complete, it'll be about 37,000 square feet of mixed-use space that will include 25 housing units and about 8,000 square feet of commercial and amenity space on the ground floor. Very excited about this. We've also been able to leverage some of our grocery funding to help City of Refuge locate a grocer for the ground floor. We know this area is in a food desert. There's a lot of demand for access to fresh food, so this project is providing that. Images on the top. This is a project called Crossing at 420 Chapel Street in Castleberry Hill neighborhood, adjacent to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. A $1 million Westside TAD grant was awarded for this new construction infill development of 50 multifamily housing units. Here, the rents will range from between 50% of area median income and 80% of area median income. And the project on the bottom is about 100 yards from us. This is the reimagining of the Trinity United Methodist Church in downtown, again, across from City Hall. It was awarded a $2 million East Side TAD grant. In total, the project will be just over $40 million. It'll allow the church to continue with its functions, but reimagining the tower to include 83 units of affordable housing, between 30 and 80% of AMI, and the term on this will be for at least 30 years. And then my last slide with project images. The image on top, this is an office to residential conversion, of which this is an area that we're getting much more involved in for obvious reasons. High vacancy on the office side, high demand and need for residential. So this is 40 Marietta Street. Again, building was completed in 1964. Atlanta headquarters of the First Federal Savings and Loan Association, and then it was occupied by HUD until the end of 2023. This new redevelopment will create about 150 units of multifamily housing, with the majority of the rents ranging between 40 and 70% of area median income. Project is estimated to be complete in 2027. This is in kind of the beginning stages of securing all of its financing, but should be complete by the end of 27. And lastly, on the bottom is a smaller infill new construction project on Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway and Northside Drive in English Avenue. This will create 24 units of multifamily housing. We provided a $640,000 West Side TAD grant to the West Side Future Fund. This project is going to be about a $7 million investment that they're doing. Again, on an empty lot in a pretty rapidly changing area of Atlanta in need of deeply affordable, in addition to workforce housing. So we're excited about this one. It's underway and expected to be complete by mid-2025. And then lastly, I just wanted to make you all aware of, some of you have been on council long enough to have been privy to this when we presented it 3 years ago. But in our IGA with the city, every 3 years, we create and present a TAD completion assessment report. So that is underway now. The last one was done in the end of 2021. So we've engaged HR&A advisors, currently underway on that assessment, and we anticipate presenting to this body in the first quarter of next year. So wanted to make you aware of that. And I think that is it, and we are happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Council members are queuing up here, so we will start with Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Clementer. It's good to see you again, as always. Just two quick questions. The first one is kind of a technical question for some of the data that you have in the appendix. I know y'all are citing 66,030 new full-time jobs. I was curious, in Invest Atlanta's data, do y'all know, is there any like quality metrics tied to that? So how long do those jobs last? So let's say a job was created in 2010. Does that job still exist today? Just curious if there's any sort of long-term tracking of the some of the raw information y'all are citing.
So we do track at the beginning when we consider it a win. We do report, we ask the business to report how many jobs, and then we have now broken down how much revenue or what job salaries are at. So I will be able to tell you what jobs, the middle wage jobs, high level jobs, or administrative jobs, whatever the range is, I'll be able to know, and I'll be able to know what zip code. But that information comes in once they report the win. We do not go back after and say, hey, are these jobs still in? We typically don't do that.
Okay, and then would there be an opportunity for future transactions that Invest Atlanta is supporting to add that as a reporting requirement? Just thinking through where there's opportunity to so think about it from the other side of this, having been on the workforce development side, tracking retention, knowing how long an employee that we help find a job stays with that job, to show that the investment that we're making is having an impact, and comparing that against other metrics that.
Now we are hopeful people will
Oh, that would be great. And I think a lot too about, since 2010, a lot has happened in our with the economy, with various job markets and things like that. And that's just another data touch point that we can help tell the story of the investments that we're making across the city. So adding that. And then the other question that I had, well, first, just start off as a comment. Just once again, thank you to Invest Atlanta for being so supportive of this legacy business initiative that we embarked on, I think, initially 2 years ago with the resolution. And I know the city has done an initial transfer of funding to Invest Atlanta to get this off the ground. Since all those sorts of markers have kind of, those benchmarks have happened, I've gotten a lot of emails and texts and calls from business owners across the city saying, hey, we've been around for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years in one case. When is this program getting off the ground? What's going on? What are the details? And so, I've kind of done the Heisman juke and say, hey, Invest Atlanta's working on it. But if there's anything you can share for the public as far as the timeline y'all are looking at and what folks can expect. And then separately, I know we have some legislation before us today that some tweaks we need to make with the initial authorizing legislation that we did a couple months ago. If you can talk through that as well, because I just want to be sensitive to y'all's time later in this meeting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes, so we have not stopped. That's why I want to make sure that the message is we are working very aggressively on the program. So the application process, we have the application ready to go on our portal. We just haven't opened it yet. We're working on some marketing materials because we want to create some sort of seal or concept that the businesses can be identified as. So we're working through that right now. In fact, we should be hiring someone very shortly to be able to do that work. But the legal team has requested that we not officially launch until the corrective action will be taken. And the good thing is it will be within the next 2 weeks because it's before you today. The legislation had on there that the funds that you referred to would only be spent in TADs, which was, we were trying to say it the other way around, that these funds would be used outside of the TAD because we could use the TAD funds for those projects. So it was it's an administrative correction, but once we get that correction and it goes to the council, we get signed, then we'll be very quickly thereafter to open it up for the applications and then work in tandem with the marketing. So we're trying to be open as soon as possible. We just wanted it cleaned up and ensure that everybody's on the right page of the use of those funds that the city council has awarded.
Thank you. And then just one last comment with regards to that. I know, at least the way I've been looking at it is, I know this is an outset, it's a new program. We're going to be trying to, cross our T's and dot our I's and collect as much data as we can. My hope is that this generates enough excitement and momentum that we can go back to the Wells Fargos of the world and to the Community Foundation of Greater Atlantas of the world and all these other philanthropic entities that want to get on board with something like this so that we can grow the program even more than what we have at the outset. So the more data y'all can collect and the more touch points y'all can have and the more stories y'all can tell, I think that will help this program grow to be the robust thing that I envision and hopefully y'all envision as well. But I just want to say thank you to you and your team, Dr. Clementich, for supporting the city in this effort. And I know a lot of our legacy businesses are excited, and especially with this huge financial opportunity that's coming up with the World Cup, making sure that we can spread some of that love and that wealth to our communities in Southwest Atlanta, Northwest Atlanta, South Atlanta, and more broadly that have been doing a lot of the shouldering of preserving Atlanta's culture and history and legacy, and we want to make sure that they get some love as the city is going to be, getting a lot of sales tax revenue with all these big events coming. So thank y'all for supporting us in this effort.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Again, just want to thank you and the team for all your hard work and everything. I know that we joke about this at some of our Invest Atlanta board meetings, but I know City Council has thrown a lot at you all in the last year. And so just thank you all for coming in on the weekends to process applications for the Small Business Recovery Grant, working on this project here. And so, again, thank you. And also just wanted to once again say congratulations to Don Arnold, who celebrated 30 years at Invest Atlanta. So again, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to the next part of our agenda today, which is the consent agenda. So we'll go for our ordinance for first reading.
Item number 1 is 24O-1601, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to apply for and accept a reimbursement grant pursuant to the United States Department of Agriculture Child and Adult Care Food Program in an amount not to exceed $634,500.00 to establish a dedicated grant account to manage the reimbursable grant funds for the contract listed here, Meal Services Program, with authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an agreement with a sponsoring organization for the purposes of the same. And that takes us to Section H, ordinances for second reading. Item number 2 is 24O-1561, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee waiving the requirements of Section 2-910 of the Atlanta City Code to retroactively authorize and ratify the City of Atlanta's submission of an application for the Breaking Barriers to Business grant from Living Cities on behalf of the Department of City Planning, with funding to be utilized for the implementation of the Breaking Barriers to Business initiative, to accept the funding awarded, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute any necessary agreements for grant acceptance and participation, to amend the fiscal year 2025 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 and for other purposes.
Mr. Cosby.
Good afternoon, committee members and Chair Winston. Stephen Cosby, Department of City Planning. I want to speak to this grant application. Our relationship with Living Cities for this particular engagement actually started in late 2021 as part of an exploratory kind of relationship building cohort. We are part of a cohort of 5 southern cities, including Memphis, Nashville, Miami, and Charlotte, to take a specific look at systemic barriers to business creation and business growth, especially for Black and Brown-owned businesses in the city. And so we started working with Living Cities in 3 of our city's business districts on the south and west sides to identify issues. Later on in this relationship, they have opened up the possibility for us to apply for grant funding. So that's why the word retroactive is in there. The grant opportunity was not a part of the initial engagement, but only emerged after they secured funding through the Truist Foundation. So we're very excited about working with Invest Atlanta and other partners in the city to strengthen and provide a more robust portal and direction for small business owners and entrepreneurs to access the resources that they need within the city.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Got a motion to approve. I'll second. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 3 is 24O-1562, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances Part 2, Article 1, Department of Parks and Recreation, Chapter 110, to provide for the reservation of playgrounds within city parks and for other purposes.
Thank you. Motion to approve?
Second.
Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 4 is 24O-1577, an ordinance by Councilmember Howard Shook to waive Article 10, Section 2-1187 of the Procurement Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the City of Atlanta and Buckhead Baseball, Inc. with respect to operation and maintenance of the baseball fields at Bagley Park, formerly known as Frankie Allen Park, for recreational baseball programs for a term of 5 years with 1 5-year renewal option and for other purposes.
Director Marr. Or
Good
Deputy Commissioner
afternoon.
Marr. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of council. I'm Rachel Marr. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Partnerships and Enterprise in the Department of Parks and Rec. Buckhead Baseball has been a partner with the city and with the department for over 60 years. operating, managing, and providing programming to thousands of youth annually at the baseball facilities at Bagley Park. This legislation will allow us to enter into a new MOU with Buckhead Baseball that includes additional public benefits, such as baseball clinics in City of Atlanta parks beyond Bagley, offered at no charge to participants, scholarships for Buckhead baseball clinics, participation in exhibition games with youth enrolled in DPR programming, and more. Buckhead Baseball is responsible for regular maintenance of the baseball complex and invests over $100,000 annually into the maintenance of fields and amenities that are enjoyed by youth and their families. DPR is excited to see this relationship continue to grow and continue into the future with the renewal of this MOU. So any questions?
Any questions or comments? A motion to approve. It's been properly seconded by Councilmember Westmoreland. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 5 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 5, 24-0-1591, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Winston authorizing a transfer of an amount not to exceed $125,000.00 from the District 2 discretionary fund account to the Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of installing pickleball courts in Central Park and for other purposes.
Colleagues, I'd like to make a motion to amend to add Councilmember Faroki's name.
Who's the second? Okay. The vote is open. The vote is closed. It'll be 5 yeas, 0 nays. And
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Good. Councilman Westmoreland, that second, because he's going to need one.
the vote is open. And the vote is closed. It's 5 yeas and 0 nays. Takes us to Section I, Resolutions, and number 6, 24R-4306, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos requesting the establishment of a commission to determine an appropriate manner in which to honor Judge Thelma Wyatt Cummings Moore and for other purposes.
Make a motion to approve. Second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 7 is 24R-4307, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos requesting the Department of Parks and Recreation to conduct a feasibility study for the renovation and expansion of the Rambo Park Recreational Center and for other purposes.
Make a motion to approve. Second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. It'll be 6 yeas and 0 nays. For item number 8, it is 24R-4320, a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee establishing a joint task order fund for use under 3 managing general services contract numbers. They're all listed here. to provide managing general contractor services for the Department of Parks and Recreation on a task order basis in the amount not to exceed $26,500,000.00. All services will be charged to and paid from the accounts numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cutler.
Good afternoon, Chair Winston and members of CDHS. The resolution seeks to establish a joint task order fund with a total amount of $26.5 million to support the construction projects made by the Department of Parks and Recreation. These funds will be used under the Managing General Contractor, MGC contracts, allowing critical infrastructure improvements across our parks and recreation facilities. The MGC process engaged 3 qualified contractors, EDT Techno SD Joint Venture, Lichty SoCo Joint Venture LLC, and Synergy Development Partners. The scope of work includes signage installation, parking lot renewals, environmental remediation, and general renovation and construction of various parks and recreation facilities across our system. The financial structure is broken down across the $26.5 million. We'll have $9.6 million from our social bond and public improvement fund, $9.4 from our municipal facility project fund, $5 million from park improvement fund, $2 million from Office of Parks budget, and $500,000 from our park trust fund to complete these projects. These funds will be distributed and charged to specific accounts as detailed in the resolution. And I will be approving the task orders on an ongoing basis as authorized by my designee as well. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Any questions, comments, colleagues? I have a motion to approve. I have a second. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 9 is 24R4426, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to accept a donation from Savannah College of Art and Design to the Department of Parks and Recreation, a mural to be painted on the tennis hitting wall located at the Bitsy Grant Tennis Center, valued at approximately $3,000.00 and for other purposes. The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 10, 24R4427, resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend Resolution 19R5035 adopted by Atlanta City Council on December 2nd, 2019 and approved per City Charter Section 2-403 on December 11th, 2019 by adding the Southside Park Trust Fund as an authorized account for the deposit of funds donated by Park Pride for the construction of improvements and the development of a baseball complex at Southside Park and for other purposes.
Got a motion to approve. I'll second. If you could please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 11, 24R4428, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into the contract listed here for after-school meal services agreement with Social Express Catering and Meal Prep LLC for after-school meal services program in the amount not to exceed $634,500.00.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And for other purposes.
Thank you for having me again. What this item does, this resolution here does, is in concert with the consent agenda ordinance, which allows us to receive funds from the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP. This is the legislation that authorizes us to spend the money that we receive from the federal government. So basically, we receive $634,500 from the federal government, and then we work with these 2 contractors to provide after-school meals to our kids in our community.
Questions or comments? A motion to approve. I'll second. If you could please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays. There are 2 items from the held part of the agenda, Section J. First is number 25. 2401457, CDP 2424, a substitute ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property having frontage at Flat Shoals Road Southeast to include the low-density residential, single-family residential, and low-density commercial land use designations and for other purposes. This is a part of an annexation.
A motion to approve. I'll second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays. Oh, yes, favorable and substitute. Thank you. And then item number 26, 24R4290, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for joint use of the facilities for recreational, athletic, and educational purposes between the Atlanta Independent School System, aka Atlanta Public Schools, and the City of Atlanta for the purpose of creating a cooperative relationship for the implementation of mutually beneficial initiatives that support APS students and the city's residents and for other purposes.
Commissioner Cutler, welcome back.
Good afternoon again. As discussed at the last two meetings ago, thank you for holding this item. We wanted to hold it until we got closer to the November 4th date, so both the school district and the city council could approve it on the same date. So thank you for holding this paper. Again, this paper is a moment in our history as a city and Atlanta Public Schools in which we codify and memorialize the work that we've already done together for years. I'm recognizing how we're sharing gymnasiums, pools, tennis courts, playgrounds, and all of the different amenities that we have to support our children and really to create Atlanta the best place to raise a child. So thank you for your support and recommend approval.
Any questions, comments from colleagues? Commissioner Cutler, one quick question for you. And we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Norwood. This has been seconded by Councilmember Westmoreland. We had a paper earlier that we approved to allow reservations. Just wanted to know how that would kind of go in hand with this legislation as well.
Yes, great question. So the prior legislation allows for the reservation of playgrounds, and this will, after the reservation is approved, at the advisement of the law department, we will establish guidelines as to which playgrounds can be reserved. So we are going to designate Benteen, Hope Hill, and Kennedy Playground as available for reservations. These 3 schools are directly adjacent or have adjoining property that abuts the school, and therefore they are playgrounds that the school relies on in order to provide play spaces. So for instance, at Kennedy, or Hollis Innovation Academy is directly adjacent to the Kennedy playground. Currently, if another group of people want to use the playground during school time while the school kids are out there, they have the right to do that. What this allows for is the reservation of that space so we can then remove or provide better safety at that location for our school children during the school day, and APS would be allowed to reserve that space. So these would be the only 3 playgrounds that would be designated during the school year.
All right, we got a motion to approve that's been properly seconded. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, any parting comments, questions from colleagues? Seeing none, I do have one. It's hard to believe we only have 3 more committee meetings the rest of this year. So the 2 November meetings times have changed due to a compressed holiday work week. So our Tuesday, November the 12th and Tuesday, November the 26th meetings will be at 1 o'clock and not the usual 1:30 p.m. start time. So seeing no other questions, we stand adjourned.